And you came in with the most energy I've seen in a long time for someone that comes in to teach someone that people that they're meeting for the first time. All right, welcome back, guys. We are episode 6 of Tazz Knows. Got a very special guest with me today, the legendary UFC Hall of Famer, Dan "The Beast" Severn. So, thanks for joining me, Dan.
Well, thank you for having me.
Round 2.
Round 2, yes, round 2. Yes.
You were here back in, when was it? April, I think you were back.
Well, you probably remember that quicker than well, to me, life on the road has not ceased or slowed down, even though I might be getting a little bit older, but I continue to move all around this country of ours, and there seems like there's a great deal of need of knowledge. And that's really what I'm here about, trying to share some of the things that I've learned over the decades of being a competitor, and also sharing all the knowledge that all these various coaches have shared with me decades ago, and a lot of these individuals that are now gone. As I made a little tribute to Doug Blueball earlier today, because we were working on the Russian 2-on-1, and I always tell that people that I learned from the guru himself, the man who went off and competed at the 1958 World Championships over in Russia, who brought back this new routine known as the Russian 2-on-1. Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I'm doing this, obviously I've been doing MMA for 11 years. I wrestled in high school, all that good stuff. So
that's why I like you that much more there, because you're a wrestler first off. And you didn't know that, but that's the reality. I do. There is a certain brotherhood that wrestlers have that a lot of people don't understand. There's a lot of professional wrestlers. They also have their own little brotherhood that's a little bit different there. But amateur wrestlers, especially amateur wrestlers that had some success behind them, they're a special breed of individuals, and they all think somewhat alike.
And that's what fascinates me about your story. And when I saw the email, like, would you like to have Dan Severn come to your gym? The first thought was like, this is a joke, right? Dan Severn's not really looking for a place to have a seminar. So, I reached back and I was like, all right, how do I make sure that this is actually Dan Severn? Yeah. Because it's just, you don't come across an opportunity like that where you open up your email and you see someone like Dan Severn looking for a place to have a seminar. So obviously, like, it wasn't until you called me the day of the seminar, like, hey, I'm outside. I was like, okay, this is Dan Severn. So it always fascinates me because, my story and people that listen, I was kind of thrusted, and we talked about it a little bit before we started recording. I was kind of thrusted into this position. Like, I wasn't, in my mind, I wasn't done with my training, nor was I done with competing by the time coaching and running the gym kind of presented itself to me. So there was still a lot of things that I wanted to work with. I still work with my wrestling coach, my high school wrestling coach, Coach Kress. He 40 years of training under Degerberg Academy. He's big up north. He's big on catch wrestling. He used to do boxing, so he's kind of the guy that got me started with all this. I didn't see, I think 12 years went by without me seeing him, and then we reconnected and we started training again right away. And one of the things that fascinates me about your story is you've done everything. You've done amateur wrestling. You've done...
Well, there's amateur wrestling, was my first, which is known as folk style here in the United States. But then by my freshman year in high school, I jumped into freestyle wrestling. And then by my sophomore year, I jumped into Greco-Roman wrestling. So, I was cross-training, or being the term that they have used since, I think, the mid-2000, 2005, 2006, mixed martial arts, where you're mixing different elements. I've been a mixed martial arts since basically my freshman year in high school. Like I said, going from folk style to freestyle to Greco, and even then when I jumped into college, I took a judo class. And then by my sophomore year, I'm doing Sambo, and just doing other things that are just different elements of grappling, whether they were gis or non-gis. And then and it was, I'll say some of it was rather comical, because in the judo class, I had two instructors. I had an Asian instructor who absolutely just hated me because I didn't conform totally to the judokian way. And where the American guy, he literally, I'm acing every test, and I can destroy everybody in the class, and yet the Asian guy is trying to fail me because I'm not doing it his way. And basically, I appealed to the other instructor. He actually came and watched me at some of the home matches and saw where I was doing exactly what he said. I'm actually incorporating judo into my wrestling skill set, and he saw where we're doing it. And he basically helped me get through the class, stuff like that. And then, like when the class was done, he's kind of like going, "Hey Dan, how would you like to go and watch a judo event? I'd never been to one before." "Sure, jump in this van." I jumped in the van. I think we drove down to Tucson, Arizona at the time. I was going to college at Arizona State. And he goes, "Well, now that you're here, how would you like to compete?" I'm like, "Well, I probably would, but I don't have a gi or nothing like that." Ta-da! The gi and all that was there, but I look like a barbarian because I did not know all the pleasantries of bowing before we get on the mat, bowing to this judge over there, bowing to that judge there, bowing to this judge here, step on this line. The referee says, "Hajime," "Haji who?" What is Hajime? Here he comes. Time to get it on, I guess, right now. So, and I'm just like a wild hillbilly. Just said, as soon as he grabs me, it's like I no longer thought, because what we were doing even earlier today, we talked about point of contact. The moment he hit that point of contact, he grabs them. It's like I go Russian 2-on-1, bash. He just did, but they had never seen anyone do like a Russian 2-on-1 in judo like that. And then they grab this, and I'm throwing belly to bellies, belly to backs, and headlocks and things that they had never seen before. Like going, we need to tame this little wild animal out here. So it just after each match, the coach like going, "Dan, you need to do this. Bow to these guys before you destroy them like that. Maybe bow afterwards too. Show a little respect there after you destroy them. So it was very comical how things fell into place for me. But my life has kind of like been that almost the entire time, to go from all of these amateur wrestling things into the judo, the sambo, and then even morphing into my first profession, professional wrestling. Then there's jumping into the cage fight world. I always call it cage fight world because most know it as mixed martial arts today, but they don't know the predecessor of NHB, which stands for No Holds Barred. So that's how the Ultimate Fighting Championship first began. And I'm big about education because most Americans are not educated in the history of their sport. So I'm always trying, you better understand your history to know where you want to go and where you want to fit in, if you want to at all.
And that's one of the big things with me is like this generation is totally different. And I always sound older than what I am to my students. Everyone's pointing fingers at me saying I'm the old guy, but I love history. I love history of professional wrestling. I love history of where MMA started and stuff, So I got super excited when I saw the email with you, and then some people were like, "Who?" I was like, "Look him up." And as soon as people started looking you up, then
I think the term is called Google his name.
Google his name.
I have to use those lines. It's the terminology I go, because I go to a lot of these appearances. Again, the younger generation, they walk by, they'll see the shiny objects. They see some belts, and they'll see some pictures. They look at the pictures, they look up at you. It's like, "That's you." I go, "Well, it's a younger me, but yeah, that's me." And like, "You did this?" I go, "Well, yeah." Google my name. You got that thing called the cell phone. Google my name. Dan Severn, amateur wrestler. Dan Severn, professional wrestler. Dan Severn, MMA. Dan Severn. I go, you might be surprised all the things that will come up because I've been around a long time.
Yeah. So with that longevity that you've had as a competitor, because you've competed in everything, you've had plenty of matches, what keeps you going? Because I've seen so many younger guys that they'll either too afraid to try something new, or they don't stick around long enough to actually enjoy the sport and reap the benefits of it.
What keeps me going? I tell you, a number of things. First off, maybe it's because I'm at the tail end of my career, so I keep saying it, or I keep thinking. But then somehow something new happens and it kind of extends on a little bit longer. I was very fortunate early on in my career that I achieved a lot of success early in life. To know that I started my amateur wrestling career in 1969. Now when you think about that, Some people will be watching going, how old is this guy here right now? But the fact that I could say I've competed in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000, 2010, 2020. We're talking 7 different decades right now. That, I mean, find another more durable person that can say that, but then you can still have an intelligent conversation. You don't see cauliflower ears. You don't see a broken nose. You don't see somebody who's got all punched and beat up, stuff like that, because I knew what my skill set was. I wasn't going to win this contest of the fisticuffs. But you got to be within arm's range to punch, kick, knee, elbow. I was always good about staying just outside of that range, baiting them to come a little closer, to bait for them to commit to something. Then I would close that distance and clinch them, whether that was out in the middle, jam them up against the cage wall, or take them down. And then it's kind of like, hello and welcome to my world. You shall never see the light of day again. Because I always tell people, if I do allow you to get loose, you're going to smack me. And getting punched is overrated. I always tell people, I'd rather be the giver than the receiver. And I have a big heart, big forgiving. But again, but people like to they want to be entertained, and that's part of the atmosphere that they're like going, is this guy legit, for real? About as real as it gets.
And I think we were talking the last time you were here that you actually got into professional wrestling first, right? You did pro wrestling first.
As of 1992, a new rule came down from the United States Olympic Committee that allowed athletes to be both amateur and professional simultaneously. Thus, we had the dream team in basketball. We had all these NBA players that were actually playing on the Olympic team for the first time ever, and no one came close to us. So I was actually approached earlier in the 80s by some professional wrestling organizations, but I turned them down because had I turned pro at that point, I would have lost my amateur status. My amateur status meant too much to me, so I just turned them down at that time. 92, I took off with it as a 92, and by 94, I jumped into cage fighting world, so I had a dual career running simultaneously, which was not easy to do, because I'm working for Vince McMahon, WWF at the time, now known as WWE. And I was working for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, but I was not exclusive to Vince McMahon or the WWF. I was not exclusive to the UFC, and I could work for anybody. And I did. I was working for the NWA because that was the first championship belt ever put on to me. It was a national, NWA stands for National Wrestling Alliance. And as far as I know, I'm still the only professional wrestler ever to have a professional wrestling title belt carried out to the octagon cage in UFC number 5. I had the gentleman's name was Dennis Carluzzo from New Jersey. He carried the belt out. He was the 5th man, and I had 4 guys on my sides, and they were actually the show. They were all dressed in stars and stripes because I was a professional wrestler first, so I wanted to put on a show. I wanted to gather attention. So these 4 guys that were on the sides, Dennis was, again, he was dressed as a promoter, suit, tie. He's carrying the belt. These other 4 guys, stars and stripes uniforms, and they got these T-shirts all knotted up, and they're swinging around, and they're throwing them out in the crowds, getting the crowd all whipped up into a frenzy. I just told them, I go, you keep everybody away from me. I said, my goal is, tonight I must destroy 3 men in the next 2 hours. Because a lot of people don't understand what product they watch today that's known as the UFC and mixed martial arts. It's a card, and you're just one match on a card that has maybe 5 or 6 matches on to. Back then, the whole card was 8 men tournament format, and if you want to be the champ that night, you have to beat 3 different men at that time. Women were not competing yet in the Ultimate Fighting Championships. So again, it's not that I'm trying to be sexist or anything like that. It's just like I'm just stating fact.
What it was, exactly.
Yeah.
So that night, that you had to beat 3 guys.
Yep. And so basically, as soon as I won, I'm holding up both the NWA title belt with the UFC title belt practically 20 some years before Brock Lesnar ever came along.
Even try to do that. Was that the night that you suplexed that guy? There's that one clip.
Actually, no. UFC number 4 was my very first UFC ever. UFC number 5 is actually when I knew I had UFC 4. I was a last minute fill-in, is all I was. So I ended up getting there, and I ended up being the runner-up to Hoist Gracie. And by contract, they can't get rid of me. So I got to come back. So for UFC number 5, I took 35 days out of my life where I told my family that I have to leave you here. Dad has to go off somewhere else, and I have to train exclusively, stay by myself. Well, I'm training with other people, but basically I was like a lone person the entire time, because I need to desensitize. Literally, if there was ever any footage, and there's not, if there was any real footage of what I did, people would be blown away at how much I worked out in that 32-day span. And I was a cardiovascular machine, but I was pumping iron. I had the cardiovascular, but then I'm doing stuff at Grand Canyon University. A friend of mine, a fellow amateur wrestler friend, he told me about a gentleman by the name of Richard Hamilton. That was not his real name. I did not find out about that till later on in life. That's a whole different story. But when he found out I was there, he was actually teaching a martial arts class, and had business class, stuff like that, so that if you really wanted to run a true martial arts dojo, there was all these different business elements there to it, and then also then the actual class itself. So I was going to his classes, and they'd have like 32, 35 students, and I was basically rolling with all 32 or 35 from literally for the whole 1 hour class. I might just take a 1 minute break here, just roll over, grab a towel, wipe some sweat off me, grab some water, and I would simply just roll right back out into mat. And as I rolled out into mat, I'd either roll either belly down, sunny side up, curled up in a fetal position this way, curled up in a fetal position there. I'd close my eyes, and the name of the game was you touch, we start. So they could come in from the north, south, east, west, or stand up at top, drop me down, but the moment that they touched, game on. So, and a lot of times they didn't realize that I was grappling, but I was grappling while my eyes were closed, because your other senses become so much more better. And there was no punching allowed in this, other than it was 100% go submission grappling with simulated strike. So we might roll around, but then I'd be going like a hammer strike. But then I would actually say it and then bring it up, and I'd touch him in the head, and like going, oh, you can see the eyes get big, like, oh, dude, I'm glad you didn't actually do that. But again, I was showing control, that I'm going through these motions, or I go palm strike, forearm smash. And like, again, cringing, because I'm weighing like anywhere from 250 to 265. I'm doing like a one arm push up on their face, push on up, and then drop, and I drop down and then stop right there. It's like, and they would see that forearm come across their face and go, forearm smash. And I go, oh my God, that's going to leave a mark. So, but by having that kind of control, I didn't take the punishment that a lot of these other athletes. You're not going to find too many men my age with the number of kind of matches. You're not going to have this kind of an intellectual conversation. The conversation will be more like, you know, I got a few more twitches, or like I have to reach the word going, Dan, I say, oh, okay. No, because they've been hit in the head one too many times. And again, I equate this even to the sport of boxing. Just because I put a headgear on you, it protects your ears from being cauliflower. It protects your nose from being broke. It protects you from being cut. But there's this gray matter, and there's called the brain, that each time you get hit, it gets sloshed and sloshed. And it only gets sloshed too many times before it turns to jello. And I always tell people that, you know, right now I've weathered the storm well, but time will tell. So
as far as longevity of your training, because you said during your seminar, you've had 2 training camps. One was 5 days, the other one was 35.
Well, no, actually, no. The 5 days I never even count, because that was just pure comedy. I did one for 32 days for UFC number 5, and one for 35 days for the Ultimate. Now, when you look at, there's only 4 people in the world that have over 100 cage fights. I'm one of those 4 cats. There's only 3 that have over 100 victories. I'm one of those 3. Now, the ironic part is, I faced the other 3, I defeated the other 3, And the closest one to my age is 12 years my junior. So when you think about someone that is 12 years older than you, with no training camp, beat all these people, and I'm lifetime chemical free, I'm a freakosaurus. Again, Dan Severn does come up with a lot of new words there too, but it actually makes sense. A freakosaurus, like a freak of nature. But I'm an old, I'm an old freak, an old freakosaurus because it's the dinosaurs,
Because I see, like in today's UFC, they argue about, oh, they only had 3 weeks to get ready, or they only had 12 weeks to get ready, and they have just these camps just when they're fighting.
Yeah.
So, and I've always told people, because I had a coach, I forgot which coach it was, but he always told me there's a difference between a fighter and a martial artist. A fighter only trains when he's got something coming up, and a martial artist trains all the time.
Yeah. He's prepared all the time too, because you just never know the element when danger's going to happen.
Yeah. So, where do you think that's the difference of where the sport started evolving to what we see today, is the fact that it became such almost a money-driven, fame-driven?
Well, in the beginning, you gotta look at, in the very beginning of the no-holds-barred era, it only had 2 rules.
Yeah.
No biting, no eye gouging. And even then, if you violated those 2 rules, it wasn't grounds for disqualification. They might simply say, hey, don't do that again. Give him his eyeball back. It was his in the first place. You took it. I mean, I say that kidly, and yet I know of some people that have lost their eyesight due to having their eye raked. They didn't take their eyeball out, but they did lose their eyesight. And there are even in today, because there's some of the athletes that they tend to keep their hands out to where they tend to, sometimes they get eye poked. Are they looking to do an eye poke? Probably not. They'd probably rather punched in the face or punched in the eye as opposed to an eye poke. But that is one of the things that does happen. Is just all depends on that individual and how their training camps, what they do. But the eye pokes are still there.
What would you say is the highlight of your competitive career?
Highlight of my competitive career was the ultimate. The reason I only say that because when you look at, I hold a couple different records in the UFC. First off, in UFC number 5, I came back. I trained for my 32 days, and I destroyed 3 men in record time. They'd never seen 3 men gone through as quickly as what I did. Matter of fact, they're not a well-oiled machine like they are today, where they have all this footage in the can, so that if a match goes short, now we can go back to, well, this is what Dan Severn's training camp was like before. Okay, these are a few other interviews we did with Dan. They had all that kind of stuff. Whereas when they're doing a live pay-per-view, they have basically 2 hours that's carved out for this. When all of a sudden the match goes 1 minute or less, and they were planning on for at least 25 to 30 minutes, that's kind of like, go to our website, buy our T-shirts, buy our ball caps. Did anybody find, that mouth, that tooth that got kicked in the face and they were lost in the beginning. So even the UFC had to go through its own growing pains of learning how to be a well-oiled machine, and it's gone through 3 different ownerships, or maybe it's 4 now, because I know Jorge Gracie and Art Davie, they were the original originators of it. Then they sold over to Bob Meyerowitz, who sold it on to the. Yeah, no, you're right. She sold to the Fertitta Brothers. The Fertitta Brothers didn't sell them to this new Chinese conglomerate that it's a Hollywood people, Chinese conglomerate of Heinz 57, all kinds of stuff right there. So it's hard to say who actually really owns that company now. Yeah. But Dana White is still the face of it because he's still kept on board as the president.
Yeah. So let's fast forward to present day. You're still traveling the country. You're still going everywhere.
Still love teaching something as basic as the sport of amateur wrestling because it's still near and dear to my heart. And the thing is, I'm an impact instructor. I can make a difference. A lot of times I'll simply just come in there. It's kind of like I could come in there and just simply just take over the show, or just let me sit back and watch you practice. And I could give you a list of add this, this, and this to it. Because a lot of instructors they don't have a good flow. A lot of instructors, they were once a high school wrestler themselves. They may never have gone on to college. So basically, anyone that is a high school wrestling coach or junior high wrestling coach, they're doing it for the love of the sport. They're not doing it for the monetary, because there is no monetary. They're lucky if they see $1,000 to $1,500, and by the time that the coach does, he buys this kid a pop over here, he buys this kid this over there. He basically has spent more money on what he has to do, because a lot of the kids don't have nothing. You know, I mean, it's definitely a very much a blue collar sport, but it's still my first love that I like to teach, because I look at that. The sport of amateur wrestling teaches you a lot of great life lessons, and the reality is you're only going to ever get out of it what you put into it. Same way in life. If you want to be on the sidelines and bitch and moan and complain, you're going to have a miserable ride of life. And most of those people, I don't even want them by me. I'm going to simply disassociate, put them off to the side, because I want to surround myself with like-minded individuals, because we have the old can-do spirit.
And that makes for some of us a very lonely. I went through that. You know, I had friends that didn't wrestle. I had friends that were always trying to get me out of the gym, always trying to get me like, hey, just come on out and, you know, let's go out. You don't have to train today. And
that's the hardest part. If you are goal driven, your friends are going to be some of the worst people. They don't want you to succeed, because if you succeed, you make them look bad. And that's when they're going to say, hey, Sean, let's go drinking. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And it's like in high school, okay, smoking pot, LSD, all this stuff was around. And like, damn, let's go to a Friday night party. I would say, I'll stop by. And I would stop by, and all these guys, you know, at the time it was called trash can. Basically, they'd have a trash can with a liner in it, and everyone was bringing a fifth of this, fifth of that. They just dump it all in here. They throw some chunks of ice and fruit and stuff like this, and you stir it all up, lay it all out, and just, it was like, you know, rotten gut, whatever, okay? But all they cared about is that they were getting a little bit drunk, silly, and then they would do even more sillier type of things. Well, Dan's not there drinking. Well, why aren't you, come on, Dan, aren't you a man? I mean, so you get, now they question your man card. Aren't you a man? I go, well, sure I am, but I'm not drinking because it's going to affect me. I have to compete tomorrow. I'm only going to be here for a certain time, then I have to leave. Well, why are you going to leave? Are you pussy or something? No, I need to leave because I need my sleep. I'm going to compete tomorrow. What are you going to do? I mean, I wouldn't say that, but in my mind I'm thinking, what are you going to do? But in my mind I'm thinking, I'm going to go do this. And so, you know, I would go, I go sometimes I go, but then sometimes I go, why put myself through this bullshit experience? I won't go. And now it's kind of ironic, because it's kind of like when you look, I'm coming up on my 46th class reunion, or excuse me, 45th class reunion coming up this summer. Now, will I show up to it? Probably not. Again, not because I'm mean. I'm in touch with the people I want to be in touch with. And that's not being mean to anybody else. It's kind of like going, if you weren't my friend in high school, I doubt if I want to show up and see you 45 years later, you know. Sean, you find this about Dan Severn. Dan Severn keeps it real.
That's what we really like about you, Dan.
Yeah. So again, because I have a couple of my buddies, they've already asked me about that. I go, probably not. You know, because if I can go teach a seminar or do something else on that day, I'll go do that. Or if I'll spend time with my kids or my grandkids, stuff like that, because they're the ones I see on a much more regular basis, and who I have a vested interest in wanting them to achieve success, because I know they don't have an idea right now of what life is about. I mean, as they get older, again, I say, yeah, my kids, yeah, they're learning more because, you know, they're in their mid to 20s, maybe latter 20s. I even got a couple of my kids right now that in their early 30s right now, towards like going, sure, they've been in the workforce a little bit longer. They understand things a little more. As the older they get, they're like going, Dad's smarter and smarter yet. The older they get, they're like, oh, Dad, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? I go, there's sometimes you do it because you just don't sleep. That's how you do it. or you drink enough caffeine and get you from point A to point B, you know.
Because one of the biggest things that stuck out the first time I met you was that you came in for a seminar on a Saturday, and then you told me that you were in, I think, Phoenix the Thursday before, and you drove from Phoenix to Michigan to pick up your stuff, and then from Michigan down here to Chicago. Yes. And that just, it blew my mind. It was like, how? I complained just driving the 1 hour that it gets me to get to the gym, and here you are going right across the country. And you came in with the most energy I've seen in a long time for someone that comes in to teach someone that people that they're meeting for the first time.
I won't tell everyone what my magic elixir is right now. But let's face it, I mean, I do a lot of driving, but anyone that really knows Dan Severn knows that I do things in a very methodical way. Everything that I do, it's going to sound kind of bad here, but I'm going to say it anyway. Everything that Dan Severn does somehow has to make dollars and cents. Sure, I can fly, but by the time I get on that flight and I put all the boxes that I need, someone still has to come and pick me up, get me there. I got to do all my stuff, then get me back up. It's very frustrating. Let's not that I drive these drives because very rarely will I do just one thing when I drive out. This was close and convenient because I just came from Howell, Michigan, so I'm looking at maybe a 4.5, 5 hour drive. I could do that standing on my head driving down the road. That means nothing because a lot of people they won't drive 15, 20 minutes. But if you want to look at this in the scheme of things, there's a lot of people that they will be born and raised in an area. They will live, go to high school, grow up, get a job, and their horizon, and they will die all within 50 to 100 miles of where they were born. Lots of people have never been outside their state unless they live on a state border. Then they might go over and say, okay, I live right there. For example, Coal, Michigan is 13 miles from the Indiana border, so they might go, oh, I went into Indiana. But a lot of people, they don't travel. And I know a couple of people that right now live in Coldwater that they worked in Indiana, they haven't been to any other state, they came to Michigan, and I helped them get a job, stuff like that. And now they're there. They're living a better life. They got a better job. They're making a better wage. And like they always say, Dan, I have you to thank. No. I said, I just helped open a door. You still had to fulfill the element of working and going to work on a daily basis. But they're happy camper because where they were at, it was a miserable existence. And now they've actually, I think, sixfold is what they've done for their hourly wage and stuff like that. So again, I've had people come to me for a lot of different reasons. Competition is just one part of it, but if people don't believe in competition, I tell them that a lot of people don't realize you're in competition whether you like it or not, because life is competition. We compete to have the best jobs that we possibly can have. You compete to have the best home that you possibly can. You want to compete because you want to have the best mate that you possibly can. So life is nothing but competition. When people say, oh, I don't believe in that, that's a bunch of hogwash. Life is competition. And to me, it's like going, well, when are you going to stop competing? I go, the day they throw dirt on my face. That's when and then even then, you better watch out in the afterlife. I might come back to haunt you still.
That's awesome to hear that, because that's been my thing since starting the podcast. Like, this is totally new to me, but people kept pushing me to do it because my thing is because my competitive career was cut short, and I keep saying, kind of like you never say never, and some of my students ask me when I'm going to go back to competition and stuff. I was like, when I find help in here and I can focus on a training camp, then I'm totally for it, because I had fun while doing it. It was frustrating. I took myself a little bit too seriously, and I wish I would have had more fun with it the time that I had, but I thought I had more time, so you never know.
You're exactly right. Well, again, you have other quality character attributes about you because you're a sincere type of a person. and that, because I only ever met you the very first time was the last time I was here, and the fact that I'm here again. And then again, this was one of the most unique seminars that I think you probably ever hosted, because you had the mad scientist over here. It's like going, just let them go. And that's where just all kinds of cool things happened. There was only a couple little repeats, but it's only simply just to get them warmed up, because we just went to the pummeling type drill. Because I do a lot of seminars, but I go through that seminar, I go with that pummeling drill, because a lot of them just don't understand what this pummeling will do for you. A striker always needs space to strike, and simply by showing people how to throw this, some of those striking things that Dan Severn does, it was either something how to throw a strike, maybe successfully actually land one, but then move into that clinch, jam them up in the cage wall, or just get that clinch out in the middle, because the moment that clinch is occurred, you've neutralized 90+% of their arsenal. And I always tell people that watch any of the combat sports now. Watch a boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, karate, kung fu. As they're out there, they're throwing punches, knees, elbows, the whole 9 yards. They always end up in some type of a clinch. And then the referee gets out there and goes, no, fellas, or no, little ladies, move on back. None of this clinchy, huggy type stuff here taking place. We want to punch, kick, knee, elbow. So as many times as they say not to do this, they all end up in it. I just try to show people that this is how you get into it in the first place, and then how to capitalize it from there, because you just can't unless you learn some of the close quarter combatives. And what I said about that was, I used the analogy that you had Conor McGregor, who fought Cowboy Cerrone, and then also Conor McGregor punches Cowboy Cerrone in the nose with his shoulder. As soon as that happened that night, my cell phone explodes, and all these people are calling me up and they're texting me like, did Conor McGregor finally take a seminar from you? I go, no, he didn't. Had he done a seminar with me, he would have done this as follow-up. And they're like, oh yeah, he probably, he still sucks. I mean, it was kind of funny that some of the things that they said there, because I teach close quarter combatives, because once you're in this clinch, how to punch with the shoulder, how to jaw jack, how to, again, understanding the rules. Big John McCarthy, he'd be one of the great person for you to interview, to simply say, is Dan Severn the most whacked out minds that you've ever had to referee? Because he'll say that he's never seen anyone like me, how I use my mind and how I've used the rules to my benefit. But then all of the people who have made up these rules, they have never been a competitor. But at the same token, look at all the different ownerships of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Were any of these people competitors? Jorge Gracie was, but he was just, I think, into maybe just his jiu-jitsu, but then I don't know if he did. Again, unknown to me. Was he back in Brazil, and was he part of this Gracie challenge that I heard about so many years back? I don't know. I just know that, and when it came to any kind of ownership of Bellator, is there any ownership theirs that climbed the cage? Nah, nada. And there's a difference between people that actually climb in the cage, that have done it and have not. And that's where we need more referees and more judges who actually have past experience, because they understand what's going through that athlete's mind, other than someone's fist or elbow or knee, that they understand what's going through that mind, and what that athlete is willing to endure before you should really stop the match. So amateur level, because I used to run shows, amateur level, I would always err on the side of safety, because these are guys that are just starting their careers, where if you're out there as a pro match, there's money, there's a reward. So I'll let you take a little bit more. I ran one show once where the guy, it was an amateur event. And the guy, I wasn't the referee, it was one of my other guys, and he was a trainee ref. And as far as I was concerned, he made the right call. But the guy continued to bitch and moan and gripe to anyone that would listen to him, to the point that I had enough. I went to his opponent, who just beat him less than half hour, 45 minutes ago. I go, are you willing to do another match with this guy? And he goes, sure. And I go, here's your lucky day. You've run your mouth quite enough. Your opponent will fight you again tonight. Here in the next, whatever, 20, 30 minutes, you know, you're going to be probably the last match of the night. And oh yeah, I'm going to do all this. Well, the exact same thing happens, except I'm the referee now. So as he's being pulverized, he's on the mat. I lay down on the mat, and I'm over there kind of picking my fingernails. And as he's being pulverized, I go, you know, I'm not going to stop this match. You best tap out, and you better save your own bacon, because I'm not going to stop the match. And he's like, okay, great. Okay, so I'm like going, you know, don't be a dumbass. These referees are there to protect you because you're not that sharp. You know, and you probably can't afford to lose any more of that gray matter that's between your ears here right now. So again, you see Dan Severn just goes off story here, story there, but I got stories for everything because I've lived a couple different lifetimes compared to most people.
No, that's awesome. That's why I get excited to this day. Like, I woke up excited to hear these stories, and just to see from a martial artist standpoint your creativity on the mats, the way that you just move and flow. And even we talked yesterday about how we were the seminar was gonna be run. It was like, we'll let them flow and you'll pick things from there. I don't see that anywhere. Everyone wants answers, like, how do I do this? How do I do this? What's the perfect move that doesn't have a counter? And we talked today, it's like everything has a counter, you know, and that's, I don't think people have that creativity that you have to just realize that there's no set ways to do certain things, and you just got to find what works for you, what works against the type of opponent that you have, and just use the foundation that you were taught and learn different ways to use it.
I mean, I would tell people, because that's part of the thing I do, is like, if you gave me 3 of your matches, within 3 matches, I could write up a pretty good breakdown of what you should be working on, because I'll see what I feel like what your strengths are, and I will feel what I feel your weaknesses are, to the point that I might even recommend certain types of weight strengthening type of things, or maybe cardiovascular, or maybe that you might not even be at the right weight class. There's a lot of things that I put when I go in there. I did this for amateur wrestling. You got to. Hardest part is I had to do this for my own matches, and even in your own matches, people don't look at it critically enough. They just look at your match. Oh yeah, I look pretty good out there. No. You got to look at the critical aspect of how am I moving? Am I moving in the right direction? Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? The hardest person to ever be critical upon is yourself. It's almost better to let other people critique it and to come up with things as opposed to you doing it yourself. But I'm really good about critiquing matches and being really brutally blunt and honest with people, to the point that I'm like going, dude, you should just find a whole new profession altogether, because this isn't your cup of tea at all. And I done that one, and I going, like, what else am I going to do? I go, well, whatever else you do is going to have a much longer career than your fight career here right now, because you're going to be simply pulverized, but you may not know it because someone will have beaten your brains out of you at that point. Yeah.
So I always finish up with the same question for everybody, and with you, I'm real curious about your answer, because obviously you've made a living out of it. What has training done for your life? Like, how has it shaped the way that you live your life today?
Well, I mean, I've always been structured, but that actually stems from even before ever being involved in competition, just growing up on a farm, because you learn real quickly you have to take care of other things. I had to take care of the animals. Before that, I'd be taking care of, mom would be in making a breakfast, stuff like that, so you have to go out and take care of, you got to feed all the livestock, water all the livestock. Not just once a day, twice a day. In the morning, it's easy because morning hits morning, and you got to do this all before you get taken care of, and you got to do it before you got to catch the bus. And then the hard part is the second time around, because you're not like a normal student. You're not just coming home after class gets out at 3 o'clock or 3:30. You have a practice to go to. Oh no, you have a away game to go to, away meet, or all day tournament. And you may not be getting home till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, but you still got to go out and feed and water the animals. You still got to go out and milk Peggy the cow and stuff like that. So I mean, there's certain things that you still have to do twice a day. So again, that mindset. But I mean, getting right back to it, it's like, I'll continue doing what I'm doing for as long as I can, even when I get to be that crotchety, real old fart there, and I'm like, hey, you kids, hey, get out of there, and stuff like that. I have my cane pointing to them, stuff like that. You kids don't even understand how to spell wrestling, let alone do it, you little shits. And, you know, that'll probably be my own grandsons that I'm saying that to. So, but I mean, but there'll be merit to it, you know, because I want them to succeed. I probably will be that crotchety old fart there at some point in time, but hopefully I'll be a comical type of one. I'll be wearing my plaid shirt and my checkered pants and my bow tie, and I'll have my 3 strands of hair all curled over just the right way, you know.
Well, thank you, Dan, for the knowledge on the mats and the conversations that we've had after the training's over. It's always a pleasure. I look forward to...
You learn more things in a nice little conversation. I mean, I'll just plug my website, dansevern.com. Severn is spelled S-E-V-E-R-N. dansevern.com is my website. There's all my social medias that are on there. So if you want to touch base with me, because I look at this juncture of life. One of my goals here is I will continue teaching up until 70, which is only 7 more years that I'll be doing that. So it's like, oh boy, time's going by fast. But then during the course of all this, I'm still going to be a motivational speaker, because I always tell people, and I use my own life as my tool, and other people that I've helped to influence, to give them also that can-do type of spirit. I always tell people I'm just good at lighting fires underneath people. They have to still accomplish it all, but if you can hold them accountable. Hardest thing is setting a goal, setting a realistic goal, and then put the steps into motion to where now you can do it. A lot of people, when they think they set a goal, all they're doing is, it's kind of like, it's almost like an impractical thought. I think I'd like to do this. But because there's no real commitment to it, and they don't really know how to go about doing it, it'll never happen. So if you set a realistic goal, you have to have all these little baby steps that get you towards it. You know, if you want to do something, you know, the biggest thing, like most Americans, you want to lose a little bit of weight, you want to be a little bit better shape, just so that you have a better quality of life. Well, if you don't get off of your proverbial ass and start moving, you're not going to do it. If you don't simply stop eating all that junk and stuff like that, it's not going to happen. There's not any rocket science. It's not like you got to do this special diet here or that special diet there. Get up, get moving. Get out there, just shake, rattle, roll. Just do something more than what you're doing right now.
Exactly. Thank you, Dan. I look forward to training with you again one day and talking again. Any last where people can find you if they want to book a seminar?
Well, again, just dansevern.com. That's they'll show you different ways of contacting Dan Severn. It's got my office number there. It's got my email address, and email is probably the best way of contacting me. So, but you know, just rest assured that the Beast shall continue his adventures around and making a difference in a lot of people's lives.
Amen. Thank you, Dan.